My brother stole my business idea and mocked me publicly, so I built it myself. Now he's broke while I control everything he wanted. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've spent most of my life pretending it didn't hurt to be invisible in my own family. My older brother Ryan was always the golden boy. He had the charm, the laugh that made people lean in, the natural magnetism that pulled attention without even trying. Our parents adored him. Teachers praised him. At family gatherings, he was the one everyone asked about. How's Ryan's job? Is Ryan still dating that model-looking girl? Me? I was the quiet one. The smart, responsible one, which was just code for he'll be fine without our attention. From as early as I can remember, I learned to clap for Ryan's wins, even when they came at my expense. One time in middle school, I designed a solar-powered fan for a science fair. Ryan saw it, tweaked the casing, and entered it in his own category. He won. I didn't even place. He said, "Come on, we both made it, right?" And I smiled like that was enough. It wasn't. What people don't understand is that being the underdog in your own home messes with your sense of worth. It teaches you to shrink, to doubt your own instincts. But I always held on to one thing: ideas. I had notebooks filled with them. Apps, services, little business concepts I sketched out when I couldn't sleep. That was my safe space, the only place Ryan hadn't claimed. Or so I thought. There was one idea I'd been working on for over a year: a subscription box brand built around sustainable, zero-waste products. Carefully researched. Branding, marketing, even packaging, all in my head and on my laptop, but I made a mistake. One night over dinner, I shared it with my family. Ryan laughed. "You? Running a business? You can't even run a toaster." Everyone laughed with him. I forced a smile. But I felt something shift deep inside, something I wouldn't be able to unfeel. After that dinner, I told myself I'd keep going anyway. I wasn't building this for their approval. I was building it to prove to myself that I could. I worked nights after my 9 to 5, sketching mock-ups, designing packaging, reading e-commerce blogs until my eyes ached. I used my weekends to test suppliers, email potential manufacturers, and price out shipping logistics. My apartment turned into a war zone of samples and scribbled notes, and I loved every second of it. I called it TerraCrate. The idea was simple: a monthly box with beautiful, useful items, bamboo utensils, refillable cleaners, plastic-free grooming kits, all tailored to people trying to reduce waste without going full hermit. Think sustainability without the judgment. It felt honest. It felt needed. And it felt mine. A few weeks later, Ryan dropped by unexpectedly. He was in the area, wanted to check in, but let's be real, he hadn't visited me in months. He stepped over my boxes and packaging samples like they were trash, picked up a glass bottle mock-up and said, "So this is what failure smells like. Lavender and vinegar?" I wanted to kick him out, but I bit my tongue. I showed him a mood board on my laptop, even walked him through the customer journey, which, looking back, was the worst mistake I could have made. He nodded along, smirking. "Cool concept," he said. "Niche, but cute." Then he left. 3 weeks later, I opened Instagram. Ryan had launched a brand called Green Crate Identical Mission. Identical color palette, same exact concept, right down to the recyclable tissue wrap and customizable welcome card. He didn't just take inspiration. He copy-pasted my dream and slapped his name on it. And the worst part? He was already getting likes, shares, comments like, "Such a genius idea." My throat went dry. My hands started shaking. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I'd never be the same after this. I must have refreshed his page 20 times, hoping I was wrong. Hoping it was just a coincidence. But every scroll made it worse: the layout, the product tiers, the exact pitch I'd written in my Google Doc, eco without the ego. Even the fonts were familiar. My fonts, I clicked through the site he linked in his bio. The landing page looked like mine, except it was polished, glossy, professionally shot images. A video of Ryan talking directly to camera like he'd invented sustainability. He was smiling, charismatic as ever, standing in a perfectly lit kitchen, holding the same kind of glass bottle I'd showed him weeks ago. I couldn't breathe. I called him. No answer. I texted, "Are you serious?" He replied 2 hours later with a thumbs-up emoji. I lost it. I called again. This time he picked up. "Dude," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. You literally stole my business idea. He laughed. Actually laughed. Chill. Ideas aren't copyrighted. You told me about it. I ran with it. That's how it works. No, that's not how trust works. He didn't even flinch. Look, man. You had an idea. I had execution. Don't be bitter, I wanted to scream. But all I could do was whisper, "You knew how much this meant to me." His voice turned cold. Then maybe you should have done something with it instead of playing house with your prototypes. I hung up. Later that night, I tried to explain it to my parents. My dad shook his head and said, "That's just business, son. You should be flattered." Flattered? My brother hijacked the one thing I'd poured myself into, and my family called it a compliment. That night, I deleted my files, not because I was giving up, but because something darker was waking up inside me, something that wouldn't stay silent for long. I stayed off social media for a while after that. Every time I opened my feed, Ryan's face was there, smiling in front of fake plants and mason jars, giving interviews to local bloggers, running ads with slogans I had invented. It felt like someone had cracked open my ribs and climbed inside just to mock the way my heart beat. Then came the video. A coworker sent it to me with the message, "Isn't this your brother?" It was from his launch party, some rooftop bar with fairy lights and a rented crowd of influencers. Ryan was holding a mic, wearing one of those overpriced linen shirts he thinks makes him look like a founder. He was giving a speech, toasting himself. Then he said, "Funny story. This idea came from my little brother. He was obsessed with compostable toothbrushes or whatever, but he's more of a dreamer." The crowd laughed. He continued, "He had all these binders and spreadsheets, but no clue how to actually launch. So I figured, why not take it out of the garage and into the world?" People cheered. Someone whistled. My name never came up again. Just that one jab. Dreamer. That was all I got. I watched it 3 times. Not out of masochism, but because I needed it to be real. I needed to see what everyone else saw. That Ryan wasn't just ambitious, he was cruel. And I was the joke. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I just sat there with my laptop open, staring at a blank page, because somewhere between the rage and the heartbreak, a single thought kept repeating in my head. If he could build that with my stolen scraps. Imagine what I could build without him at all. I didn't tell anyone I started over. Not my friends, not my parents, definitely not Ryan. I just got to work. Mornings before my shift, nights after work, weekends alone in my apartment. No Instagram. No networking brunches. No rooftop parties. Just me, my notes, and a slow boiling fire in my chest that wouldn't go out. I renamed the brand. Deleted every file that had been tainted by association. I went back to the root of the idea, not what looked trendy on social media, but what I actually cared about. Real sustainability, real transparency, products that worked, packaging that didn't lie, and most importantly, a brand built on integrity, not performance. I called it Hollow Earth, because that's how I felt, like something had been scooped out of me, and now it was time to fill it with something real. I tested products myself, created packaging with local artists, learned how to code a Shopify theme from scratch. I fulfilled my first 20 boxes by hand, sitting on my floor, wrapping each one with recycled paper and a handwritten note. My bedroom looked like a miniature warehouse. My back hurt. My eyes burned, but for the first time in months, I felt alive. One night, I posted a short write-up about the brand on Reddit. No photos, no links, just the story. A guy who got his idea stolen and decided to build something better. It blew up. Thousands of upvotes. DMs from strangers asking when they could order. People who had no idea who I was, but who felt what I was saying. I didn't mention Ryan once, didn't need to. Because this time, the work was speaking for itself, and I was just getting started. The thing about copying someone else's vision is, you can't steal the part that made it real. Ryan had the gloss, the shiny labels, the PR packages, the influencer videos with perfect lighting. But I had the grit, the obsession. The nights of research about compostability standards in different states, the long email chains with customers asking if our packaging was truly plastic-free. I had the why, and he never did. While he was buying Instagram ads, I was in Reddit threads and Discord servers, talking to people. Listening. I joined sustainability communities not to sell, but to understand. What frustrated them, what felt fake, what they were still missing, turns out, a lot. Ryan's version of the brand was pretty. Mine was personal. By month 3, I had a wait list. People were recommending Hollow Earth in Facebook groups, tagging me in zero-waste TikTok videos. A small YouTuber did an unboxing, and it unexpectedly hit 100K views. Sales tripled in 2 weeks. I had to call in favors from college friends just to keep up with fulfillment. Every order was packed in my living room. I still remember the sound of the tape gun, that shk over and over at 2 a.m. My neighbors must have thought I was shipping contraband. But I didn't care. That sound meant I was building something honest, and Ryan? He never noticed. He still thought I'd disappeared. That I was probably sulking somewhere, bitter and broken. I didn't correct him. Why would I? Some wars are better fought in silence, while the other guy's busy congratulating himself for winning a battle you never joined. A few months later, my parents hosted one of their usual Sunday dinners, the kind where everyone pretends things are fine while passive-aggressively comparing lives. I showed up late, covered in packaging dust and tape residue. My mom looked me up and down and said, "Rough day at work?" I nodded. I didn't bother explaining that my work now involved running a business growing faster than I could handle. They still thought I was working some dull office job. Meanwhile, Ryan strolled in wearing his CEO hoodie, like he'd trademarked entrepreneurship. He started talking about scaling operations and investor interest over mashed potatoes. Dad hung on every word, nodding like he was watching a TED Talk. Then Ryan smirked across the table at me and said, "What about you? Still doing that box thing, or did that fizzle out?" I smiled back. "Nah, I gave up." "Turns out I'm more of a dreamer," they all laughed. Even my mom chuckled. I kept smiling. What they didn't know was that just that morning, I'd signed a contract to supply eco-starter kits for a regional grocery chain. It would double my monthly revenue. I'd already started looking at warehouse spaces, but I said nothing. Let them think I disappeared. Let Ryan keep performing, because I'd learned something far more valuable than attention: the power of being underestimated. When people don't see you coming, they don't know how to stop you, and honestly, that dinner was the last time I cared about proving anything to them. I didn't want applause. I wanted progress, and while Ryan was still busy building his brand for social media, I was quietly building mine for forever. About 6 weeks later, I got a message on LinkedIn that nearly made me choke on my coffee. It was from someone named Kara, apparently Ryan's new assistant. She introduced herself politely and said Ryan wanted to schedule a meeting with me to talk branding strategy and maybe bring me on as a consultant. Consultant? I read the message 3 times. At first I thought it was a prank, but then I checked her profile. Real company, real connections, real job. I laughed. Out loud. This man who stole my idea mocked me in front of a crowd and made me the family joke. Now wanted to hire me to fix whatever was falling apart behind his curated photos. I replied, "Sure, happy to meet." 2 days later, I walked into his WeWork office. Modern lighting, fake plants, rented ambiance. Ryan greeted me with that same smirk, but it was thinner now. Tired. I noticed bags under his eyes, like maybe the influencer glow-up wasn't enough to fix fulfillment issues and angry customers. "Glad you came," he said, gesturing to a seat. "I've been thinking, your aesthetic eye was always decent. Maybe we work something out. You help me revamp the brand, and I cut you in. Maybe 5% equity down the line." I stared at him. He thought he was offering me something. I leaned back and said, "Appreciate the offer. But I'm already running a brand, full-time." He blinked. "Wait, what?" I stood. "Thanks for the coffee." "Good luck, though. Really." I walked out before he could say another word. The elevator ride down felt like flying. He still had no idea. And that was the best part. It started slowly, a few Reddit threads. 1-star reviews trickling onto Ryan's site. Complaints about missing items, delayed shipments, tone-deaf Instagram captions. At first, I ignored it. Not out of kindness, but focus. I didn't need to obsess over his downfall when I was drowning in orders of my own. But then one night, a customer messaged me and asked if I was the real version of Green Crate. Said she'd bought from them, hated the experience, and was told to check out Hollow Earth instead. Word was spreading. Ryan had built a business on buzz, not backbone. He'd scaled fast but sloppy. Poor sourcing, unreliable vendors, automated customer support that ghosted people. Influencers started quietly distancing themselves. One even posted a video titled, "Why I No Longer Support Green Crate." It got 500,000 views in 4 days. Meanwhile, Hollow Earth was blooming. I hired a part-time fulfillment assistant. Got a message from a small sustainability magazine asking for an interview. We landed a collab with a nonprofit to send free boxes to low-income families transitioning to eco-living. It wasn't loud growth, but it was real. Then Ryan tweeted a thread. It started with, "The hate is unreal. People just love tearing down self-made founders." Self-made? He spent 10 tweets blaming cancel culture, competitors, and even customers for misunderstanding the mission. Not once did he admit failure. Not once did he say, "We messed up and we'll fix." I didn't reply, didn't subtweet. Didn't even like a post. I was too busy working on a new welcome kit that our customers had voted on in a poll while he was spiraling on Twitter. I was fulfilling a dream he could never steal because I wasn't building for applause anymore. I was building to last, you'd think by now. Someone in my family would have noticed the fact that I was no longer borrowing money, that I'd moved into a bigger apartment, that I'd stopped dodging questions about work, that I wasn't bitter anymore and just busy. But no, to them, I was still figuring things out. At the next family dinner, my dad asked Ryan how business was going, even though by then Ryan had stopped pretending. His Instagram was dead. The office lease had expired. He'd quietly paused operations without a word to the same family who once toasted his genius. Ryan shrugged. "I'm taking a break, scaling back, focusing on some consulting." Dad nodded like that was impressive. "Smart move. It's good to know when to pivot." Then my mom turned to me and said, "And you? Still doing that little EcoBox thing?" Little EcoBox. That phrase rang in my head for the rest of the night. I wanted to say, "We just crossed 10,000 subscribers. I'm hiring 2 more people. I'm speaking on a sustainability panel next month." But I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Yeah, still doing it." Because I realized something in that moment. I didn't need their validation. Not anymore. It used to hurt, the way they saw Ryan as the visionary and me as the side quest. But now, it almost made me laugh. They were stuck in a story that ended years ago, and I had outgrown the pages. That night, I walked out early. Got in my car, blasted music, and drove home to finish a new pitch deck for a retail collab. My inbox was full of inquiries. My phone buzzed with real traction. I wasn't invisible anymore, just out of reach, and that was enough. The invite hit my inbox like a shockwave. Subject: "We'd love to feature you on our Founders and Futures panel." I reread it 3 times just to make sure it wasn't a mistake. But it was real. A local startup incubator was doing a speaker event featuring sustainable brand founders. And they wanted me, not Ryan, not the loudest guy in the room. Me. I hadn't applied. Someone had referred me after seeing our nonprofit collab go viral on LinkedIn. I accepted, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud, not just in secret, but publicly. The event was held in an old industrial loft, exposed brick, Edison bulbs, those weird chairs that look cool but destroy your spine. I was nervous at first, but the moderator was kind. He asked me real questions, not about hype, but about mission, mistakes, ethics. Halfway through, I told the story of starting over, of losing something to someone I trusted, of building without applause. I didn't say Ryan's name, but the room felt it anyway. After the panel, people lined up to talk. A woman told me our packaging helped her autistic son feel calm opening boxes. Another man said his daughter used our products in a school project about conscious consumerism. I had to excuse myself for a second. The emotion hit like a wave, and then, just as I was heading out, someone stopped me. "Hey, didn't your brother do a similar startup a while back?" I smiled. "Yeah, briefly." They nodded slowly. "I remember now. But your stuff feels real." That moment, that was the win. No spotlight. No trending hashtags. Just someone finally seeing me and seeing what he never could be. It was a Wednesday. Rainy. I was knee-deep in logistics hell. A pallet of starter kits had been damaged in transit, and I was on hold with a freight carrier when the front desk buzzed. "Hey, there's a Ryan here to see you." Says he's your brother. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen him in almost a year. Not in person. Not since that awkward almost job offer. I told the receptionist to send him in. He looked smaller. Not physically, but energetically. Like someone had pulled the batteries out of his ego. He didn't waste time. I need help, I raised an eyebrow. With what? His voice cracked. I'm broke. No grand entrance. No performative pride. Just those two words hanging in the air like smoke. He said the business was gone. Investors had pulled out. Personal savings drained. He was working retail to cover rent. I know we had history, he muttered, but maybe we can build something together. Merge, start fresh. I stared at him. This man stole my idea, mocked me publicly, let our own parents treat me like a failed experiment. And now he wanted a fresh start? I'm not interested, I said quietly. He blinked. What? I already built something. And you don't get to walk in now after it's working and act like we're co-founders. You're being petty. No, I said. Standing, I'm being fair. He stood there, rain dripping from his jacket, fists clenched like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I opened the door. You should go. He didn't fight it. Just walked out. I watched him disappear into the gray. That was supposed to be my moment of triumph, but it wasn't. It felt hollow, because somewhere deep down I had once wanted him to see me, to finally respect me, but he never would, and that had to be enough. After Ryan left, I sat at my desk for almost an hour without moving, not because I was shaken, but because I realized something terrifying and freeing. I didn't care anymore, not about his apology, not about our history, not even about the part of me that had once begged for his approval, or our parents' recognition, or someone to finally say, you were right. That part of me was gone, buried under fulfillment slips, late-night grind sessions, and quiet victories that no one clapped for but me. I looked around my office, small but real. 2 desks now occupied by new hires, a shipping corner stacked with orders, a whiteboard full of upcoming campaigns and product feedback. This wasn't a little side project anymore. It was a life, my life. I'd funded it without handouts, grown it without shortcuts, and protected it from the very people who once tried to laugh it out of me. My parents still didn't get it. They still talked about Ryan like he just needed one big break to bounce back. They still asked me if I was doing all right financially, even though my business had passed 6 figures in revenue last quarter. I stopped correcting them, because I'd finally accepted. Some people will never see you outside the box they built for you, and it's not your job to break their walls. It's your job to build outside them. I went home that night, poured a glass of wine, and opened a message from a podcast host who wanted to feature Hollow Earth. I didn't cry. I didn't brag. I just felt light. Like I had finally stepped out from under a shadow. Didn't even realize I'd been living in, and I didn't need to look back. It's funny how strangers can sometimes see you more clearly than your own blood ever did. After the podcast aired, things shifted. I started getting emails from college classmates, people I barely remembered, telling me they were proud, that they always knew I had something different. A high school teacher messaged me saying she used my story as a case study for resilience in her business class. Even a guy I used to intern with sent a voice note. Bro, I had no idea you were behind Hollow Earth. That's insane. Mad respect. I smiled, thanked them, moved on, but something about those messages stayed with me, because none of those people had anything to gain by saying it. They weren't obligated. They weren't family. They just noticed, and noticing, for someone who spent most of their life being invisible, is a kind of love. Our social media pages started growing fast. One of our customer-generated videos went semi-viral on TikTok, 1.2 million views in a week. We landed a brand partnership with a mid-sized hotel chain for eco-amenity kits. Suddenly, doors that used to be locked were swinging wide open. Ryan, meanwhile, had vanished from the scene. No posts, no projects. Mutuals stopped mentioning him entirely. Then one day, someone sent me a screenshot. He was working the register at a boutique pet store downtown. He'd blocked me on everything. I didn't feel smug. I didn't feel sorry. I just felt done. His story had ended. Mine was still being written, and it was being written by people who saw the difference between a borrowed idea and a lived mission. Not because I screamed louder, but because I never Stopped building. I didn't plan it. It wasn't revenge, not exactly. One afternoon, while doing a routine audit of expired domains for a rebrand project, I had a random thought. I wonder if Ryan ever renewed his. I typed in Green Crate's old domain, the same one he once paid a small fortune to secure. It was available, expired, abandoned, forgotten. I stared at the screen for a minute, then clicked buy now, $10. That's all it took to take back the name he'd stolen from me. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell my friends. I just logged into my own brand's backend, set up a simple redirect, and routed greencrate.co to point directly to holloworth.com. Now, anyone who typed in his brand, and whether out of nostalgia or curiosity, would land on mine. No branding war. No lawsuit. No call-out post, just a quiet, perfect circle. That night, I sat in the same chair where I'd once cried over Ryan's betrayal. But I didn't feel anger this time. I felt something better. Closure. He'd burned through his hype. I'd built something that outlived it. He took credit for something he didn't believe in, and it crumbled. I poured belief into something no one else saw, and it bloomed. And now, I didn't just reclaim my idea, I eclipsed it. Not because I outsmarted him, but because I outlasted him. That's the part they never see coming. The power of slow, quiet work. The kind done when no one's clapping. When no one believes in you. The kind of work you build in the dark. That ends up lighting everything. Sometimes I still think about that night at the dinner table, when Ryan laughed, and everyone laughed with him. When I was just the quiet brother with a cute little idea. If I could go back, I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't try to explain branding strategies to people who never asked how my day was. I'd just smile, because now I know. You don't have to win their approval to win. You just have to keep building. Ryan took credit. He stole the spotlight. Got the first clicks, the first applause, the viral photos with rented plants and polished speeches. And for a while, he looked like the winner. But credit is cheap when it's not backed by substance. Control, real control, comes from doing the work, from eating the losses, from learning your audience by answering emails at 1 a.m., from surviving when no one's clapping. He mocked me publicly, and now he can't even say my name. I didn't destroy him. He did that himself. With ego, shortcuts, and empty flash. All I did was refuse to quit. I built something no one can take from me, because it doesn't live on a trend board or in someone else's approval. It lives in the systems I designed, the trust I earned, the customers who stayed, not because I shouted the loudest, but because I showed up when it mattered. So if you're listening to this, and someone's stolen your dream, don't scream at the thief. Build something better. Build something they can't copy because it comes from your gut, not just your files. That's how you win. That's how you take back what's yours. Not through revenge, through ownership.